What's going on YouTube? Heroclix tutorials here with our first tutorial of my channel. Hooray! Yeah, new channel. Yeah, my intentions for this channel are to help beginners and maybe even people that have been playing for a while of how to learn different tactics and learn it from another person's point of view. Or if you're new, then, well, you'll learn the game. So, just a little bit about myself. I have been playing the game for a few years now. I think I started back when Wolverine and the X-Men start came out. So I mean, maybe a year and a half, 2 years maybe. And so I'm a little experienced, but the reason why I decided to make this channel is because my buddies that I play with in my locals have been telling me that I'm really good with giving tips, even though, I mean, I don't win because I like to do theme teams. I don't really like to do the meta. They say I'm really good at helping them get better because I know decent strategies and I'm able to give them tips. However, I'm not able to do it myself. Don't ask why, I have no clue. Anyway, back to my first video. I'm going to be talking about one-man teams, or tentpole teams is another term for it. It's pretty much you have one Heroclix for your entire team. It's just one character to rely on to do all your bidding. So it has to be very high defense, very high attack, high damage, and has to be able to get in and out extremely quickly. Or if it's going to be in there, it has to be able to stay in there and not have to worry about taking that much damage. Because, you know, one figure, if you take any damage, you're pretty much sitting there, you're sitting duck waiting to get shot. So, let's get started. Let's start off with pros. Pros, if you're playing, if you're able to only have one figure, it's probably going to be a low point value, like 200, 300, 400 point game. Which means that all the figures that you're going to be going against are low point values, which means you'll have a little advantage, meaning that you have one big guy and they have a bunch of little guys poking you. So that's one way to get lucky with it. For example, say you have Impervious and all of your enemies only have 2 damage, they're going to have to find a way to get 3 damage on you or outwit your Impervious, otherwise they're going to have a hard time hitting you, meaning that Impervious is -2 to damage and they only have 2 damage. So that's one pro. Another pro is the fact that since you once again have all these high stats, you're going to be able to destroy all their figures fairly quickly. For example, Kurth here has 11 attack and 5 damage. So he's going to be able to do 5 damage if he attacks, and it's not going to be very hard to hit because you have a pretty high attack rate. So let's go into cons. Cons, well, first of all, biggest con, you have one figure to do everything, which means your actions are going to be the biggest problem. If you know how to manage your actions, this is the team for you. If you have a problem learning when and when not to move and push, then, well, I would recommend doing another team because this is not going to be working for you. Another con is if you're in melee, it's going to be very hard to get out of combat unless they have an ability that says otherwise. Which is why I chose Kurth here, because he has an ability that makes it so he can break away without having to roll. He can just break away. So those are pretty much the basic pros and cons. I mean, there's other things that I could go into, but I don't really think I need to do that. So let's go into abilities that are needed if you're going to have a one-man army or a tentpole team. So one figure that I chose here was Sentry from the Avengers set. He's 299 points, which means he would be for a 300 point game, and because he's 299, you get to avoid the abilities that have it so if it's on the exact number, you have some little problems, because I mean, that's frustrating. So let's go into what he has here. He has hypersonic speed, right? So hypersonic speed is really good for a one-man team. For example, look here. So say he's here, right? And you're all the way over here. you can use hypersonic, move 1, 2, 3, attack, and then move out further because you have more. So you can move like even further depending on your movement, which means you can get in and out of combat really quickly, which is really good for that team because you're pretty much just wanting to kill them and not take any damage from it. So hypersonic is a really good ability to have in a 10-pole team. Another really good ability is perplex because you're relying on yourself. So being able to get that extra boost is going to help you significantly. So some good defensive abilities are things like impervious, invulnerability, and super senses. I recommend impervious. Impervious is probably one of the best defensive abilities in the game, if not the best. It's super senses and invulnerability combined. The reason why it's really good in a 10-pole team is because of the fact that you have a chance of not taking anything, and if you do take something, it's -2. And for low point games like this, like 200 points, most figures are going to be like 50 points, maybe at the most 70, 80 points each, which means that they're not really going to have that much damage. So only being able to take 1 damage every time is going to help you, especially if you have about 10 clicks like Kurth here. Another good ability to have, well, it's good if you have high defense, is charge or running shot. You want to be able to move. Mobility is key in 10-pole teams. You can't really see it, he doesn't have it, but Kurth has a trait that gives him charge. So he has pretty much charge passively, which means he can get in and out. Like I said, it's a really key thing to be able to get in and out of combat without having to take any damage from it, which is why hypersonic is a really good thing. But that's another reason why I chose Kurth here, is because his damage ability makes it so he can break away, and he has charge. But you can give him a charge action, charge at something, and take it with you. So pretty much, say they had like 3 guys here, and Sentry was one of them. You can take it, you can go in charge, and then move away, making it so it's just you and Sentry. So that's a really good ability because you can just get in and out. So let's go into stats, things that you need in stats. Obviously, if you're gonna have a high point value figure, only one figure, you're going to want to have a bunch of clicks, which is why I chose Kurth, because he has 10. I don't remember how much. I think Sentry has 10 too. Yes, he does. So stats. I like to have about 11 or 12 movement, because your mobility, like I said, is key. Attack, I like to have about 11 or 12, maybe 10, depending on the figure, because you're going to need to be able to do damage. Defenses, I prefer to have 18 or 19. Sentry is an exception because he has perplex, and since he has such a high damage and attack output, I don't really think that you need to put perplex on anything else unless you're perplexing somebody down, but I don't really think you should do that, because the only reason why I like to perplex things down is if I have another figure that would attack it too. Alright, so damage. I prefer to have 4 or 5 damage because of the fact that invulnerability and impervious are a thing, and yes, it's hard to face it, but you're not the only person that has them. Oh, poor you. So, if having 5 damage or 4 damage would make it so you at least do 2, if anything. If they don't roll for their impervious or super senses, you're still doing a bunch of damage. Because the whole point of this team is to kill them before they kill you. Which, I mean, that's kind of the basic rule of Heroclix, but I mean, you get what I'm trying to say. So these are 2 figures that I recommend. The only problem with these 2 figures is they don't have range. Sentry, if he had like 6 range, 4 range, even 3 range, something like that, that would make it so he can get in and out of combat even easier. Because, he can just even if he's right here, he can just attack, run all the way over here. But, I mean, Kurth's okay because he's meant to be a melee, and he has that thing where he can move people away. but I still think that having range is a very good asset to have. So there you go, that is the basic one-man army. I went over good stats to have, I went over good abilities to have, I went over why, what they are, why you would choose it, pros and cons, and a couple figures that I would recommend. So there's your basic tentpole or one-man army team. I hope you guys enjoy, and if you have any suggestions for other figures that are also good for a tentpole team, please leave it in the comments. These are just a few that I just grabbed really quickly before I made the video. But if you have any other recommendations, please tell me. I don't really have a lot of high value tentpole teams because I prefer to do swarms, but hey, if you ever need to do this team, you have a couple figures. And go out there and play some clicks, fellas.